tomahawks.
terror and rage that he could not actually remember what that countersign was. So Colonel Cleveland instantly leveled his rifle at the cleric's breast and attempted to fire, but the gun snapped and didn't go off. The cleric jumped at Cleveland, seized him by the collar, drew his tomahawk, and would have sunk it into Cleveland's brains if his arm had not been arrested by a soldier by the name of the cleric immediately recollected the countersign, which was Buford, named it, and Cleveland dropped his gun and clasped the declarant in his arm. Here's an example of grappling. Get control of the guy, grab his collar, grab his neck, hold him in place, sink the tomahawk in there, right? And once again, kind of shows a guy in the heat of battle, essentially kind of going berserk, charging the enemy by himself, going in there, partly out of rage, partly out of grief. His brother lived, by the way. Now, this last one that I'm going to read is kind of actually my holy grail of tomahawk combat. I did not find this in a digital repository. I found this in a book called The Revolution Remembered, which is actually a collection of these pension records. If you're interested in this, I highly recommend it. It's a great work, has some phenomenal stuff in there. Really shows the side of the Revolutionary War that we forget whenever we see people in pretty uniforms shooting at each other at the national parks, and just how brutal these things can be. So in this case, David S. Welch was a militiaman in Vermont. And this is what he says about his one tomahawk encounter. It fell to my lot to be placed in the most westwardly man of our party as we marched north. In this way of marching, about the middle of the day, I had, as I afterwards found, become separated upward of half a mile from my companions, when I discovered through a thicket of hemlock bush the appearance of smoke, evidently indicating the fact that there being a fire. We were then in a wilderness some 15 miles beyond our most current frontier garrison. Immediately on making this discovery, I crept with the utmost caution towards the spot from whence the smoke rose. Presently, I saw through the bush 2 Indians sitting by smoke that appeared to have been kindled to keep off the mosquitoes. I instantly laid myself flat down, keeping my eye upon the spot to see if there were more than the 2. In a few moments, I became impressed with the belief that there were but the 2. I was not more than 8 rods, about a yard, distant from them. It was very close. After much hesitation as to what might be most proper, I finally came to the conclusion that my companions were proceeding on and might perhaps be surprised, as there might be more Indians within short distance. I drew my gun, and whilst lying thus flat on the ground, I took deliberate aim at one of the Indians and shot him dead. The other Indian instantly sprung up on his feet, seizing his gun, and started to run. Without reflecting upon the consequence, I immediately ran after him, having my gun unloaded. The Indian made but a few leaps after I started before he turned and fired upon me, but his fire missed, as I suppose, by several feet. He then dropped his gun and came at me with his tomahawk. I encountered him with my empty gun. The first blow which he aimed with his tomahawk, I warded off with my gun, and in doing it, I was so fortunate as to hook the deadly weapon from him. It fell on the ground rather behind me. I was then encouraged and sprung to get the tomahawk, in which effort I succeeded. Whilst I was yet bent in picking up the tomahawk, the Indian, who had drawn his knife, gave me a cut, giving me a deep but short wound upon my right leg a little above my knee. He then aimed a second stroke at me with the same weapon. This blow I warded off with my left hand, in doing which I received a wound between the thumb and the forefinger. About the same instant with the tomahawk, I hit him with a blow on the head, which brought him to the ground, and with another blow after he had fallen, I made sure that he was beyond doing me any further harm. One thing that I find very interesting about this is that this guy has an empty gun that he's already used successfully, but the tomahawk was considered so prominent in this, right? That's the weapon that I want, that he literally abandons his gun to go and fight for this thing on the ground, right? And it takes 2 hits to finish the job. So, having said all that, these are the sources that I kind of developed my system from, right? If you're interested in more period sources, Matt Easton of Stahl's Laboratory actually has 2 videos that talk about tomahawk combat. They're like documentary length. I watch them obsessively. They're great. They're great. The man who made these right here, Zachary Wingard with Wingard Wearables, also has some great videos talking about particularly the tomahawk being thrown in combat. I highly recommend that y'all watch that. He also makes great products, and he'll return your emails and talk with you for hours about war clubs and tomahawks and all that stuff. He's a great guy. So anyway, I would definitely recommend those sources as well. So, having said all that, let's talk about what my system is. I'm going to, we've got a pile of tomahawks in the back there. We may have to share in groups and everything. if you brought one with you and you don't mind sharing, I would highly appreciate it. We got a lot of people here. So I'm going to get these cleared away, and then we're going to go over Tomahawk Fighting 101. How good am I on time, Doug?
You're good on time. You have an hour and 20.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Oh, what's that?
Is that from Devil's Edge?
I believe so. This was actually a best man gift from a friend that got married.
Okay.
I wore it at his. But yeah, no, if you like, you can check that out. So.
Let's get a close up of it for the live. Beautiful, beautiful. Show them a little bit of tomahawk, Sean. Show 'em a little bit what you got going on. That will kill.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Zachary Wingard with Wingard Wearables, right? Sponsor me.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Show them the moves. Show them the moves. Uh-oh, I just stepped on a tomahawk, not being aware. I'm sorry, Sean. I almost fucked your paperwork up.
Yeah, we can just move those over there. We can actually pull them off the map.
Yeah. You can get them off.
Yeah, he does actually. So, Voltage is the one that makes them.
I'm going to show a little bit of the tomahawk class because that was a big seller on this one. I was super excited to have Sean come and do it after he did it for us in the dojang.
So, the first thing I want to point out with tomahawks, like I said, these more historic examples, and we've got a variety of different trainers in here. So this is not going to apply to all these. But, so whenever it comes to using these, because with the live blade here, obviously if I've got a nice spike or a hook on the back of this, I don't want to wind this up and catch myself behind the head. And I don't want to park it over the shoulder because I'm going to, as I did one time, poke myself in the shoulder. So, and this is actually true of most tomahawk designs, and I really like this stance. I get in sort of like a modified Greco-Roman wrestling or even boxing stance. I take the head and put it in the shoulder pocket, and I keep both my hands up like this. Now, why do I do that? Well, like I said, and we won't go over throwing today, but historically speaking, that was a go-to move, right? So if I've got an open stance and a guy throws at me, he's probably going to tag me before I can get a hand in the way, right? Now maybe I get lucky and I duck it, but if he's standing for me to aid him and he decides to throw at me, I'm probably boned, right? But if I keep both my arms up like this in this kind of like shell boxing stance, I can do a wing block and at least take it on my offhand, right? And I could even potentially just kind of go like this and maybe just catch it. And in fact, there's some guys that are good enough in my group now after I've done this to them 100 times, they'll actually just catch it in between their arms. I don't recommend doing that. But I keep it like this, and depending on if you're left or right-handed, if you got it on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, that's going to be your leg that's back. That's your power, right? That's just like throwing a punch, just like in longsword or anything like that. It's going to be weighted back on your power side. And now from here, and like I said, I've tested these on so much fruit, so many
That's all for that one.
and some, like I said, some flesh and bone cards. And it does not take a great deal